Yo, what is going on YouTube? This is Jacob, aka Snyderverse Toys. Today, the video, what we're going to be discussing here is mainly just scaling and just kind of talking a little bit about, where to start if you're thinking about customizing. Starting on the far left, so you've got SHF. You have Movie Masters right here by Mattel. What is this, the DC Multiverse right here. So you got General Zod, Diablo, got some Mafex, so I put Cyborg right up in here, I put Harley Quinn right up in here. Then we start getting a little bit more into like soft goods, so that's where we start with Felix Toys. So I got Joaquin Phoenix right here, the Joker. I've got Bruce Wayne, this is by Noda Studios. Got a couple by Masco Toys right over here. So you got your Batman and Superman from BVS. And this is a custom that I did. So this is supposed to be Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Flashpoint Batman. And the body that I used for this was by SSR Studios. So that's just a custom that I've made right here. So Peacemaker and Deathstroke. These are GW Toys bodies, which we'll talk a little bit more about how these pair up very nicely. Nightmare Flash here, I'll cover him a little bit later on in this video. And then finally, Darkseid and then Cyborg right over there. Those are McFarlane Toys. So the things that I wanted to talk about is, first off, what to buy. What should I buy? What's right for me? Well, the questions you got to answer is, are we looking at a price point? If you're looking at what's going to be easiest on the budget, it's probably going to be like these two right here, and then McFarlane's. So a lot of people like going with that right there, right? Articulation, I'm not really gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna play around with articulation very much. SHF is usually a great option to go with. Mafex is really good. The only problem with them is that I find that the joints loosen up pretty bad, if you keep messing with them too much to the point where of no return. So obviously quality too, that's another thing too, where it's like for some people they absolutely love figures with like soft goods right over here, but some people just kind of want, just give me a regular figure. As far as like what's going to pair up nicely, well, SHF is going to be the smallest of everything, right? Here's a good example. So right off to the side, I've got a Mesco Wonder Woman, right? And then I also have the SHF Wonder Woman right next to each other, right? And you can already kind of see, right, the difference in height, right? So not all 112 figures are created equal, and that's where you're gonna have to kind of decide like, hey, do I want to go a little bit more on the smaller end of figures? So what I always like is, I really like how like SHF, Mattel figures, might even want to throw in Marvel Legends in there. Marvel Legends will probably be somewhere kind of like right up in here, and then Mafex, right? And then you, like I said, you kind of tap into Felix Toys. I'm also thinking like even Patriot Studio I think would probably fit nicely right up in here. But once you start trying to pair this up, like let's just say you're collecting SHF, but you're also on the opposite end of the spectrum over here with like McFarlane Toys, you can see what a big difference that is, right? So that's where, again, when it comes to buying, you got to ask, are we looking at price? Are we looking at articulation? Are we looking at, quality of the figure? Do we want soft goods? Do we want all plastic? Yeah, so that's that. Next, part swapping. Well, technically with part swapping, guys, you can literally pop anything out from any of these figures and just put them, next to whatever. But I'm gonna actually use my Supermans right up in here. So I've got Mesco Superman on the far right. I have got a Mafex Superman right here with a custom Maniple Studios head, right? And then right here is another custom that I'm actually working on myself. So when it comes to part swapping, right, like this head sculpt, right, this isn't something that was stock, right? This is something that I purchased, like, all right, I'm going to purchase the head sculpt, and then usually most sellers like on eBay will specify Maniple Studios, right? If you look at this right here, this just won't look good on either one of these bodies. It's just going to be a really tiny head and vice versa. So yeah, that's where you want to be careful with all that. So if you're thinking about purchasing like a maniple head, you've got to like think, all right, I'm going to have to go with like a Mafex line right up in here, right? It's just not going to work that nice with, you know, something like Masco right here. So that's that. Then you've got Kitbash, and that's where I'm going to start pulling out like Deathstroke right here. Yeah, try not to knock over the figure. So this is a custom that I made, and the suit, starting with the suit, so that's not a plastic, that is an actual suit, like right over here. I've also got Peacemaker. So we have artists such as let's see, who was it, Charles Ford, on Instagram. He had made this suit right over here, right? And these are what you would consider soft goods, right? Now the soft goods, they're also not all created equal, right? You have soft goods that can fit on a body, like these are both GW toys, but then you also have like right over here on the left hand side, this is by TB League, and I think this is the TM02A body, I think. So in the pictures, looks like a really buff dude and all that, but when you actually put them side by side, he's not as big as these figures right over here, or like Mesco, for example. So GW Toys pairs really nice with like Mesco figures. I would say something like the TB League, the Noda Studios, like I have the Bruce Wayne right there, Felix Toys, things like that. I would say, and again, this is just depends on the actor and all that, but I would find like a body like this fits better with something like that, right? So with Kitbash, right, you're basically building the character from scratch, I would say is the best way to put it. I mean, if you guys have a better definition, then you have a better definition, right? But there's soft goods underneath the armor, and then there's a lot of artists like this kit right here I got by 3D Marine _112 custom on Instagram. There's a lot of artists out there that, you know, they do 3D design and print, but basically everything was printed. And the cool thing about going with something like this is, like, if you wanted this armor printed on a smaller body, like again, this is just an example, like the TB League body, then Robert would be able to actually print something like that on this body right here. And then, you know, when you look at the joints and all that stuff, that's a whole different thing there, but he would design the boots to fit this, right? So that's a little bit, just a little quick intro into what Kitbash is. Now the straps and then all that stuff, the paint, the additional modifications, that's going to be completely up to you. Cutting and then also drilling is another thing that I wanted to cover. A great example, so if you've seen the first video I had on my channel, I had Black Adam right over here. This is by McFarlane Toys, right? The video was how to scale him down to fit a little bit nicer with the Mesco line, right? This figure, right, Black Adam, was originally like it's by McFarlane Toys. This is a McFarlane Toys body, right? So when it comes to drilling and things like that, so what you got to do is basically disassemble the figure, right? And the drilling is gonna happen to where, like, it's usually on the inside where the pegs go through. I basically open up the holes a little bit more in order for the pegs to travel a little bit further in. Essentially what I'm doing, guys, I'm again squishing the figure together. And then when it comes to the cutting, well, the cutting is just going to kind of depend on the figure. Where do you feel like it's best to cut the figure? Like in this case, I'm like, all right, you know what? It would look weird if I cut somewhere right here in the middle, and then that would also require some additional work, like using some sculpting or something like that. In this case, I actually did the cut right above the boot, and then I re-glued the boot to the legs, and between that and the drilling and all that, I was able to get Black Adam to, you know, basically fit a little bit smaller. So ultimately, yes, a McFarlane figure, you know, can start again making it, depending on the figure, it might look nice with something like a GW Toys body, SSR, Mesco, but probably wouldn't look that great with something like over here on the far left, right? See where I'm getting to with this? So yeah, I mean, that's McFarlane Toys, what it's technically considered like a 1/10 scale. So even when you guys purchase like head sculpts and things like that, you have to be mindful about the body that you're going to put it on. Yeah, these heads are just going to look way too big on these bodies. The fifth thing that I wanted to cover was Epoxy Sculpt. That's just the clay that I happen to use, and that's where I wanted to bring in Nightmare Flash. So this figure, all right, I'm going to drop in some nuggets, some secrets about this figure. So you guys know the CW Flash, right? They made a couple of different figures for him. They made the smaller one, which is by Mattel, and then they made the bigger one, which kind of blanking right now, but I wanted to say it was, I wanted to say it's maybe DC Multiverse. I'm not sure off the top. That is the body that I use for Nightmare Flash. Then what I did is I used the McFarlane Toys Zack Snyder's Justice League head. I popped that in here, and then everything that you see, all of the armor was used or was sculpted by me using the Epoxy Sculpt. What is it, the A formula and the B formula that you have to mix together, right? So after the clay hardens, or as it's hardening, that's when you want to start sculpting onto that, and that's like, again, that's a whole different thing. That right there requires a lot of work. It would require watching some videos to just kind of see, and also some practice, because that's a whole different thing right there. And then with this figure, I did the paint myself. It was a lot of mixing of colors and things like that, but and then like the straps, like those are straps that I cut myself and that I glued on wherever it needed to go and all that. So just so you guys know what Epoxy Sculpt is, when I tell you guys, yeah, this wasn't printed for me, it was sculpted by me, that's what I'm talking about right there. And then last but not least, there is 3D design and print, and the cool thing is that, you know, if you just need a head printed and you want to paint it yourself, I mean, we just touch base on what that was. I would just say, just make sure you specify what you're looking for when you're purchasing a head sculpt. Understand the body that you're trying to put it on, right? Don't try to go from McFarlane head size, something like a 1/10, or even like a Mesco size head, and try to put it on something like a Mafex. It just isn't gonna really work. If you guys have been following me for some time, I will actually ask people such as Arch. Arch is known as, what is his tag on Instagram? I wanted to say it was AR3D printed. I basically tell him like, hey, Arch, I'm kind of looking for this. I'm looking for it in this size and all that. Actually, I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but like right here, talking about sizing, right? This is Doomsday right here from BVS. These are pretty much going to be statues, right? They're going to be statues, and that's where I was telling you guys, you know, what to buy. One of the first things we covered was, is articulation important to you or not? My figures, like, I already spent so much time customizing the figures that I just don't really want to spend additional time and energy trying to pose the figures and all that stuff. I get it. If that's your thing and all that, cool, you know, keep doing your thing. But altogether, my figures just kind of stand in one position, and that's it, right? So these are just some examples of what, you know, many possibilities of what you can do. When I first got into customizing, there was a lot of mistakes that I ended up making. I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of you know, what to buy and things like that, and I just had to kind of, it was like trial and error for me, really. Hopefully for you guys that are looking to maybe get into customizing, or even for you guys that are looking to, it's like, hey, you know, I would like to see what this figure looks like side by side with this other figure, then cool, right? But altogether, guys, I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any questions, I'm always available on It's Snyderverse Toys on Instagram. That's usually the best way to reach out to me. I am on Twitter as well, and then also on TikTok. I don't. Other than that, guys, if you like this video, just give it a like, subscribe, hit those notifications. I would like to push more content like this and all that, but I also want to make sure it's worthwhile. So share the video, all that good stuff. Thank you for your time, and again, feel free to reach out. Very responsive, and happy customizing.